Hey, happy Friday, guys. Today's question is, what should I expect with my first showing as a seller? Stay tuned and find out.
You better get fired up.
Guys, good to see you. Happy Friday. It's 11 o'clock. We're here every single Friday at 11 o'clock with You've Got Questions, I've Got Answers, where we answer your top questions in real estate. So today we're talking about a seller who's asking about what the first showing will be like. What should they expect? What should they prepare for? And I thought, what a great question, because as a realtor, well, it seems so simple, and you would think it's simple. There's a lot of intricacies, a lot of details that if you're aware of them, you can really succeed with your first showing. And you can be more comfortable too, to be honest, right? And that's a big deal too. So obviously, let's start from the beginning. You're going to want to make sure that the house looks absolutely perfect, right? I think a lot of people put a ton of effort into making sure that it looks great for photos, which is important. But your first 2-3 weeks of showings are, in my opinion, just as valuable as the next 5 months. Okay. That first 2-3 weeks is critical. That's your biggest chance. That's why a lot of times when people say, hey, let's start 10, 20 grand overpriced and we'll come down on price, I say, I think that's a bad strategy, because you're going to get about the same amount of showings in your first 2-3 weeks that you're going to get in the next 5 months. And you don't want to lose out on all that interest. So you want to make that home look just as beautiful at that showing as it was during those photos. So make sure the house is clean. Make sure it smells good, right? Bake some cookies is what I always say. Get some light tunes on, something very palatable that people are going to like. Turn all the lights on. If you got fans, turn the fans on. If you got windows, open them up. Let that natural light come in. I can't tell you how many people say, I don't really like this house. It's too dark. And if we just open up the windows, they're like, wow, there's so much natural light. This is great. So really have your home looking tip-top shape when they walk in, okay? So that's the first part. Now, let's talk a little bit about my showing specifically, right? And every agent's going to be a little bit different, but my showings are all set up through a platform called Showing Time. Honestly, I don't know why other people do it differently. I think Showing Time is the best because sometimes I'm busy. So if you've got to wait on me to be a third party and intermediate to go back and forth between the buyer's agent and you, the seller, we could lose a showing. We could lose interest. We could lose all kinds of things. Showing Time is immediate. So once that buyer's agent comes in, they have to be a realtor. All their credentials have to be there, their license, everything. It checks all that. So I don't have to, which is great because, obviously through text, just because you have a business card that you sent to me doesn't mean I know you're a realtor. But if you can get into Showing Time, I know you're a realtor, right? So you send that request goes directly to you as the seller. You're going to get that in a text that's going to say, hey, you've got a showing request. It's for tomorrow. It's from noon to 12:30. Do you like that showing time or not? And you either punch in a Y or an N. And I highly, highly, highly suggest, at least for the first month, try not to turn anything down, right? I know it's challenging, especially with some people's schedules, but you don't want to turn anything down, because if you turn something down, the odds of them coming back are, well, they're not 100%. And a lot of times, I get their perspective. They'll say, hey, 4 o'clock won't work, but we could be there, clean it up at 5. You could come at 5:30. Well, if I've got 5 showings and I'm the buyer's agent and we're going in a line that makes sense, right? We're not going to want to whip all the way back around and then come back. Like it's just not going to work in a lot of cases. Some cases it will, but try to get in the habit of saying yes to all showings, especially in the first month, right? Even if it's inconvenient. The plus to it is, you might be saying, well, Joe, I don't want to take the inconvenience, and you don't live in the house, so of course you're going to say do it. I'm assuming you want massive amounts of money, and the way you're going to get the most amount of money is to get the most amount of eyeballs on that house. And if you can get multiple offers going at one time, man, that's when you can start cranking them up, working them against each other, and getting the terms and the dollar amounts up there, right? So that's the goal. So have it looking good. They're going to schedule it through Showing Time. You're going to type in a little Y that says, yes, it's approved. The buyer's agent's going to get that. If I'm busy, I'll see it when I come back and check my messages, my emails. I get a text and an email that shows me as oversight what's going on. And they're going to come through. So what I'm going to do is, in the background, I'm making sure that agent knows everything that I've put in the private remarks. Sometimes they don't read it. I want them to know what we've got in the documents section. You've got documents prepared. Maybe you've got a feature sheet, whatever it is. I want to make sure that they have all that. So I'm going to text and email them that information, and I'm going to wish them luck on their showing, right? Now, if they've got a question, they can't get in the door for whatever reason, or they don't understand how this particular appliance works or whatever it is, they've got my number at the top of their texts. And it's easy for them to reach out to me and ask those questions. So in the showing, sometimes people are going to be late. Sometimes people are going to be early. I think most professional agents are going to take a window. It could be a 30, 45, or a 60-minute window. It could be a 15-minute window, to be honest with you. And the goal is to show up within that window and to leave before that window closes. Professionally, you should be calling, if you're the buyer's agent, you should be calling the listing agent saying, hey, I'm going to be early. Would that be okay? And getting approval before you show up. You should be calling or texting the listing agent saying, hey, our window is 12 to 12:30, but we're probably going to be there around 12:40. Will that be okay? And I get it approved. However, not everybody calls us and texts us, unfortunately. So you might get someone who shows up a little late or comes a little early. Remember, it is your house. You can say yes or no. Of course, I know you're trying to sell your home. You'll probably say yes if it's possible, but just realize you agreed to 12 to 12:30 in this example, not 11:50, not 12:40. So don't worry. If they come early and you're not ready, you can tell them, hey, you're a little early. We're still cleaning up. Would it be okay if we had 5-10 more minutes? If they're late and you've got company over, or you just put your baby down for a nap or whatever it is, and you're not comfortable, just tell them no. Hey, I apologize. You're a little bit late, but you can reschedule. Again, try to get them in the house. That's the overarching goal. But I want you to know that you don't have to say yes when somebody's early or late, right? But it will happen. It will happen. And I've had people before too. We're looking at 6-7 houses, and you don't know if they're going to take 5 minutes at this house, 33 minutes at this house, 20 minutes at this house, 0 minutes at this house. I didn't like it. You don't know. So you might get a little ahead or a little behind. So be aware of that. Now in the showing, they should not be touching your personal items. They shouldn't be, rummaging through your clothes, or, opening drawers is understandable. They might want to see if there's soft closed drawers. Opening cabinets is understandable. They want to see what the insides of the cabinets look like, but they shouldn't be touching your plates or your silverware, or, none of that should be happening. If that's happening, it's on the agent, the buyer's agent, to say, hey, I appreciate, us being able to look at this home together, but let's stay away from the seller's personal items. That should be said. I'll tell you too, you're going to want to make sure that anything that's worth anything, right? So if you've got to spend expensive watches or jewelry, or, I had a baseball card collection at one time, lock it up, put it somewhere, hide it, whatever it is, because while I have shown probably thousands of homes, to be honest, man, that's crazy to think about. I've shown thousands of homes. I've never had a theft issue. I've never had a damage issue, but it happens, and I've heard of it happening. And not everybody is a full-time agent. Not everybody's watching their clients the way that they should, and not every buyer is ethical, right? Some of those guys are there for malicious reasons. Again, very rare, not concerned about it, but let's be intelligent too and make sure that we're putting that stuff away. Once the showing is over, it is expected two things: that the house will go back to the condition it was in when they showed up. So if you've got all the lights on, they're going to leave all the lights on. If all the lights were off, they're going to turn them on. They're going to do the showing, and then they should turn them all off. Do they always turn them off? No, and they should. But it is what it is. We can put in the notes, please turn the lights off. Some of them won't. But if you leave them on, they're going to leave them on. Why? Because they don't know if you've got 3 showings scheduled, boom, 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 right after another. So if you've left them on, they're going to leave them on. Be okay with that. The second thing, though, is all your doors should be locked. So even if you've got, like, I've got some people who, right when you walk through the door, they've got their back slider to the pool. It's like a 4-section slider, and it goes into the wall. They've got it all open. They want that light breeze coming in. They want you to see how cool it is that they've got the pool with the waterfall and the spa and the music out back and the tiki bar and that light breeze coming through into the family room there. They want you to feel that. And that's great. I would suggest doing that if you've got a home like that. That's really cool. But as a realtor, a showing realtor, a buyer's realtor, it's my job to ensure that that home is locked up when I leave. So I'm going to close that. Why? Because if I leave and it takes you half an hour to get home before or after I leave, I do not want to be responsible for somebody coming through your home and, stealing stuff, damaging stuff, whatever. I want to make sure that that thing is locked up. So if you have any instructions for buyer's agents that deviate from what I just shared, you're going to want to leave that in a little note, put it right there on the kitchen counter. You can also tell your listing agent, they can put it in the showing remarks. But I still would put that piece of paper because a lot of agents don't read those showing remarks, and you want to make sure that they see those, right? You're going to have a lockbox. Probably. I've had people say, let's hide the key in this place or whatever. I usually suggest against it. I don't often see that, but you're probably going to have a lockbox. And your lockbox is going to be one of two types. It's either a combo box where you scroll through some, numbers or letters and you punch it in and it opens, or you're going to have what's called an iBox, right? And that iBox is an electronic box, and you've got to have a key. It used to be back in the day, it was a little square key, a black key, and you had to put it on this little receptacle and it would read it and it would update it with all the, today's information. And then when you got there, you'd punch your code into your key, you'd touch the key to the iBox, and then boom, it would open the iBox. Well, now it's the year 2025. So we've got it right here on our phones, right? You just pull up an app, punch in your code, bing, bang, boom, and it opens the iBox. Now, the cool thing about an iBox is, everybody who's opened that box, right? That's really cool. So if you do have any problems, you've got something to go off of. Although if they're using showing time, even with a combo box, you're going to know who was in and out of your house. I've never had an issue with a combo box ever. That's a lie. When I was up in Minnesota selling and it was 10 below, some of those boxes would freeze up. And you were just out of luck, man. Especially if they didn't have an overhang over their front door, you would get snow on it. It would freeze up. That became a challenge. The iBoxes were a little bit better with that. The challenge you have with iBoxes, especially if you're out in the sticks or, my gosh, tradition. I don't know how we can be in tradition, probably the busiest spot on the Treasure Coast here. And they've got the worst Wi-Fi, right? You can't get connection anywhere here. So if you've got an iBox, it's possible that you're not going to be able to connect to your phone and your app won't work, and now you won't be able to open it, right? Those concerns are very low, though. If I show, I wouldn't even say 100, I'd say 1,000 homes, I might have 2 or 3 issues. It's just not often. Combo boxes in Florida, never had an issue. iBoxes in my history, I've probably had 4 or 5 issues. So it's not really a big deal, but it could happen, right? You're going, obviously, to need to give a key to your agent so that they're able to put it into a box. The exception to that is if you've got a keypad. If you've got a keypad on your door and you can punch your code in, great, there you go. Now there's concerns with that. If you're using your keypad and you just gave it to 7 realtors who showed it over 7 days, that's 7 people who know your code to your house. Are you comfortable with that? Some people are, some people aren't. Some people will go in and they'll have that code, but when that showing's over, they set it back to a code that they use personally, right? And then when there's a showing scheduled, they'll change the code back for that particular amount of time. And then when the showing's over, they change it back to the code that they use. For security purposes, a little bit more work, but it gives you a little more peace of mind. But you can do anything you want. Anything that works for you, makes you feel safe, but also allows realtors to get in and access the home is going to work. I highly recommend you do not remain in the house for the showing as a seller. You do not want your listing agent there. And I understand what people are thinking. You're the person I hired. You're the one I want to show these people the home. I want you to sell it. And I always tell people, selling it does not sell it, right? Because what happens is, and I'll give you it from my experience as a buyer's agent, when I come in with a buyer and we're looking at 3-4 houses, the house that they love, that they're going to put the offer in on, is rarely perfect. There's some issue. They don't like the flooring in the bathroom, or they don't like the wallpaper in the bedroom, or they don't like whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. If they're able to tell me, Joe, I really love this house, we'd probably put an offer in on it, except we don't like the carpet in the bedrooms. I can easily say, that's understandable. If it wasn't for the carpet, what would hold you back from putting an offer in? Nothing. Okay, great. Well, let me ask you this. To redo those 3 bedrooms, with what kind of floor would you want? Well, probably a tile. Okay, with a tile flooring, assuming you're not doing it, you're hiring it, right? So it's going to be a little bit more expensive. You're probably looking at $10,000, $12,000. If I were to get you an estimate on those 3 rooms and it was a tile that you liked and it came out to $10,000, $12,000, and we could talk the seller into coming down $10,000 or $12,000, would you be open to putting an offer in on this? Sure, Joe, that'd be great. Now I got you an offer. If you're in there, the listing agent or the seller, they're not going to say that because nobody wants to hurt your feelings. So now we leave, we go to the next showing, and I say, what'd you think of that last home? Oh, we really liked it, but the flooring sucked, right? But I can't get that out of them right there while they've got that nice, warm feeling about the home. And the odds of me getting an offer on it go down because of the awkward presence of the listing agent or the seller. So again, I know people are going to argue with me and they've got different opinions on it. Fine. But for me, with my experience, get out of the doggone house. Let those people feel comfortable. Let them quit thinking about you owning the home or your listing agent breathing down their neck, and let them start thinking about them owning the home and feeling comfortable with their buyer's agent, right? If you want to communicate something to the buyer's agent so that they share it, you can either leave pamphlets on the kitchen counter. A lot of times you'll have a feature sheet that shows all the features of the property, or I like to put that feature sheet in the document section, and in the showing remarks I'll let the agent know, hey, there is a feature sheet, go check it out. Present it to your clients so they know everything that's going on. I do not brand it because I want that buyer's agent to feel comfortable sharing it without Joe Rosen's name all over it. And now they know all the features of the home. So that is what I would do instead of staying at the home. A typical showing is going to last anywhere from 10 to 60 minutes. Anything over probably 20 minutes is a really good sign. So I always tell people, hey, if you've got a 30-minute window and they're kind of hanging over, if it's a problem, go tell them. But if it's not a problem, I'd take a spin around the block for another 15, 20 minutes, because the longer they're in that home, soaking it in, making it feel like their own, the better chance there is not only they're going to come in with an offer, but they're going to come in with a strong offer, which is exactly what we want. So now the showing's over. What happens with feedback? I can tell you personally, when I have a listing, it's automated that we send out 7 emails, one a day, saying, hey, Tom, the agent, you had shown our home at whatever address on this date at this time, and we're wondering if we can get some feedback on the home. And we ask 4 specific questions. What did you think about the price? What did your buyer think of the price? Are you going to be submitting an offer? And if this was your listing and you had to change one thing to make it better, what one thing would you change? That's what we ask. I tell my clients, I'm going to send this to you unedited. Are you comfortable with that? It might hurt your feelings. Every single client says, yes, send it. Some of them get their feelings hurt, some don't, but they now know the unfiltered responses from the person who showed the home, and they can see that. Now, this all sounds good, right? Like I said, I send 7 emails. I also make 2 phone calls, and I send, is it 5 texts? I think it's 5 texts. So that's 7, that's 14 communications to agents. I bet you I get 30% of them responding to me with something. So I always tell my clients, don't be offended, don't be hurt, don't be bummed if people aren't responding to our requests for feedback. Agents just don't give feedback. And I'll give them a little bit of credit. There have been lawsuits because a buyer will say, not interested, it's got ugly carpet, I hate it. The agent will tell the listing agent, just want to let you know my buyers didn't like it, it has ugly carpet, and we're not interested, but thank you. All of a sudden, a week goes by, that buyer wants to come back and purchase the home, and the sellers are offended and say, absolutely not. Well, now the buyer is suing their agent because they let go of that information that killed their deal, right? So I can understand why a lot of people don't want to give that information up. It makes sense. I would say to the buyer's agent, ask your buyer, are you okay with me sharing this information with the seller? A lot of them are going to say yes. I ask them all the time. And if they say no, cool, you're the boss, whatever. You're the client. So whatever you say, we're going to do. But just have the expectation as a seller that about 30% of agents are going to get back to you with some sort of feedback. So guys, there you go. That's what to expect on your first showing. If you've got any additional questions or anything, put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them later. And if you've got questions that you want answered around real estate, feel free to put that in the comments or Facebook DM me, and I'm happy to bring it up in another episode in a future Friday. You've got questions, I've got answers. Every Friday at 11 o'clock. Thanks again for joining me today, and we will see you next week. Take care.